Called under the committee, the whole for the city council, Village, Iowa, on Monday, June 3rd, 2024. At 6:03 PM. Roll call.
Collins,
Present.
Zachary,
Present.
Campbell,
Present.
Yelsey,
Present.
Mr. Beck will call. He might not make it. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
By Campbell, second by Dockery, to approve the agenda. Number 3, old business, discussion of providing a zoning verification letter and resolution of support for the Eldridge Fields LLC development to be submitted with an application to the state of Iowa for the workforce housing tax credit program. Ben, can I call you for this, please?
Sure. There was a memo in your packet. This is kind of a follow-up or another option, as part of the expansion of the URTE area. Eldridge Fields is the development that's going in next to the Windmüller development, and they came and presented a couple weeks ago to do the workforce housing tax credits for that development. Those applications are due to the Iowa Economic Development Authority by June 9th, and they have to have a resolution of support submitted as part of that application. And if the council were to provide a resolution of support, it's non-committal, but it is supporting the project and stating that the city would be working towards the required contribution from the local public agency to be able to partner with the developer for that application. Their development is looking at 50 units. So we would be looking at supporting that development with $50,000. It's $1,000 per unit for the workforce housing tax credits. If they do go forward with the application and the city provides that resolution of support, if they are awarded the funds that their application is approved, then the city would still have to go through the step of approving any contribution of the 50,000. There would still be an approval step that needed to be taken after this initial step of just supporting the project. The 50,000 can be provided to the development through cash, tax exemption, TIF, in kind. There's a variety of ways that we support that development. And the workforce housing tax credits would meet the housing assessment needs for the community for affordable housing for the Wilco development that's coming in and the industrial and commercial industry that we're trying to attract. So this does not, it could be separate from the URTE if the council decides to expand the URTE and this development does get tax exemption, that would count as that $50,000 contribution. And if they decide not to move forward with URTE and still want to partner on this project with the state and the developer, then they can meet that $50,000 requirement for local public funds in a different way. The resolution is on the city council agenda for consideration following this discussion, so that if the city council does want to provide a resolution of support for that application, we can go ahead and move forward with that so that they can send in that application to the state by the deadline of June 9th.
But again, there's no commitment to any specific amount. We're just saying that we will work with.
So it's not a commitment. If they get awarded, if their application would get awarded, and we did want to move forward and approve that support, we would have to provide 50,000 as a minimum because it has to be $1,000 per unit and their development is 50 units. And what that does is it goes to developers, that's applications are awarded by the state that are providing housing that it has a cap on what the rent or the lease can be for those that is truly affordable for middle-class working residents and families that are coming to our community to work in these industrial.
So it's just one building, not all three?
So the development for the Eldridge Fields turned in for us was the 50 unit. I believe the 130 is when you look at it together with the Windmüller project.
Because I remember 130, which is 50, 50, and 30.
And the 50 and 30 on the Windmüller side, or the maybe
There's
phase
three
two.
though. Ben's correct.
Yep, 50, 50, and 30.
So this would be, from my understanding, they're just, putting phase one forward in this application, and then they may do phase two, at which time that would be a separate application, separate resolution.
But if we put that property in that plan, then we're liable for $100,000.
Yeah, this is separate from that plan. If you guys expand the URTE and that development applies and is awarded the tax exemptions, that would count towards the contribution for this tax credit. If you don't do that, but you still want to partner with this development to get these tax credits for the workforce housing, then you would just be looking to support that development with $1,000 per unit of that development. So this does not have to be tied to URTE. It can be met by the URTE plan if you decide to go that way, but it can be met in other ways. It doesn't have to be tied. The URTE can be, conversation can be finished and you guys decide not to move on, but you still can partner on with the state on this development.
I look at it, I don't know if there's a need for this. You know, I'm not a big fan of this. Growth patterns have shown free markets were developing. I don't see why we should commit taxpayers' dollars to an area. It's not a blighted area. Anything that qualifies for similar programs, I'm just not in favor of spending taxpayers' money to help them develop to get tax credit. I think in time that will develop anyways. You know, whether you put 50 units in or 130 units in, it's going to have a direct impact on our water and sewer. So the water, we're pushing capacity, we're probably 80% capacity right now. So there's a lot of things. I mean, if the true market warrants it, the developer shouldn't have any problems putting it in himself without coming to us and asking for subsidies from the taxpayers. That's my.
I've kind of been all over the place with this, and I woke up this morning and I was kind of thinking that was kind of a hard no on this because I don't believe it. Failing now residential development, you know, they bought this property and they have a plan for it and they should be held accountable. And, you know, $50,000 on the surface, I'm not seeing the direct benefits to the citizens. You know, I go back to our meeting that we had, you know, a couple weeks ago at the park board. They presented some really good projects. You know, and we thought they were good projects that were somewhat expensive. And I think that we get money to spend, I would rather spend it on money that will directly benefit residents. On the other hand, I mean, we're being told that this isn't necessary housing that we need. And it'll be for families, which would bring hopefully children to the school district and would benefit the school district, you know. So that's another way to look at it as well. And I do believe that it's difficult to attract young families to Elbridge just because of living out here at the high cost. You know, I don't see Dale coming to us looking for incentives, or at least not in my time in the council. You know, he's a developer. He's developed a lot of properties out here, and I don't see that. But then I met with Nevada today and listened to what she had to say. And the trend is for young families to, you know, lease and rent before they purchase because they just can't afford to purchase. I don't know. This is truly a target population base that we're looking for. I'm kind of like Brian, I'm not totally certain that we need it. So I'm anxious to see other people's input as well.
The only citizen that I've heard from was putting us next to our neighbor next door. And she said that, you know, Dan, think about how that town's perceived with all the apartments in the front of the town, and how all the beautiful houses are back. You're doing the same thing to us. I said, well, it's a little bit different. But she didn't have any problem with like the townhomes and the condos and that kind of thing. It's a single family that she felt was growing our town, but with the apartments, she was worried that, you know, it was going to be just like our sister community, that she didn't like the look of the town or, you know, what it was going to attract. I did try to explain to her that and told me about the, you know, if we do go with this, it's going to cover us. So then other people can't get low housing, low income housing there, this would kind of qualify us. So I tried to pacify her with that, but she said just be careful because, that's 103rd right there. And I kind of torn, to be honest with you too, because, I want Eldridge to grow, but I wanted to do it the right way. We always want growth, so we have more money so we can do projects for the, park board and, project for us in the city and, keep our integrity with the water and the sewer and, when we will need a new water tower, we gotta be able to pay for all that. So I want the tax income, but yet I want to do it the right way and just enough aggressive enough that we can keep up with the times.
And my point is, we don't know that if we don't do this, that the project's good. That's a business decision the developers have to make. If it's any business, yeah, they're gonna ask for it, if there's free money out there, why wouldn't they? We don't always have to say yes.
And she asked me too, if, okay, so they build this thing and then if they sell it, do they then take section 8 out? I didn't know the answer.
And
Section 8.
private development owners can make that determination on their own, but this particular development has to qualify for those tax credits by meeting a certain rent or lease amount. There's nothing, we can't predict the future, what could happen there, but these are gonna be, middle income, 2-3 bedroom, apartment units, so it's hard to say what could happen way down the line, but there would be a time frame that they would be under as well.
They're gonna have to be
Receiving the
estimated.
tax credit. They have to be owning it. They're the ones that would be receiving those tax credits for meeting these eligibility requirements for those credits.
I guess I'm in favor of it in ways, and then you also bring up some good points as well, on both sides of it. So I guess I see the one building that I know that they own in Bettendorf and Douglas Glen. It's very pleasing looking building. Whole facility looks nice. I understand that it's difficult for families or young couples to get decent apartments in town. I would be questioning Sheridan Meadows, how often, how many vacancies do they have on a regular basis? I'd like to know that. Because I would say Sheridan Meadows is probably the higher scale apartment building in the area. Aside from that, we've got a lot of apartment buildings and duplexes and that aren't very pleasing. They're somewhat of an eyesore. So again, I guess I see benefits on both sides. I'd hate to see the developer not want to come to town because they're not getting incentivized, but in the same token, $30,000, if that's a deal breaker for them, that doesn't make sense to me. If they truly believe that there's a need for those apartments here, whether they're incentivized or not, I would think that they would make that move.
They bought the property, right? So they must have faith in that they can make it work. Didn't the gentleman tell us at the last meeting that needed a lot of obstacles that came up with, costs and expenses and things like that? Well, it's kind of a thing they should plan for, I guess. It's not our responsibility to bail them out if things get tough.
Right.
And we've never been residential tax, right?
Actually, it's against our code to tip residential.
Just for clarification on the 130,000, that's our portion of the contribution, but they get tax credits from the state. So what it amounts to in assistance for them for the development is considerably more than the 130, but that's just what our partner contribution would have to be on each unit.
But this is a competitive situation. They're getting these types of incentives in that. They expect them and they're getting them.
They're getting, Davenport and Bettendorf both offer incentives for multi-residential, even single family residential, they have tax incentives.
Let them move to Davenport or Bedford.
So for this development, with the information that they sent over to us, With the workforce housing credit, they would be at a value of 599,000 profit. Without the workforce housing credits, their development as it stands would be at a deficit of 50,000. Comparables on what the developer is looking at.
And those are numbers they supplied.
Yes.
Dale, are you selling all your townhouses or are you gonna have some of those as rentals?
When it came to use, when I started that, they used to ask me not to have. I'm not gonna have any rental.
And who asked you not to?
That's been years ago. I think the incentives are more for businesses to get businesses here. Something will come. But businesses, you have to incentivize them some, to get them to come.
I'd love to see the developer bring in housing that those young people can afford, like a townhome or a side by side or something like that. Maybe without a basement, just so they could keep the cost down. I'd love to see that. I think that would help our community and our schools. And then they'd be, stay in here. And just be passing through or jumping from spots.
But we say schools, if they would move to Parkview versus others, they're still in our schools.
Our Scott campus.
Yeah, there's ample apartments out there. So, and we can't necessarily make our decision based on the schools. We can only make it on what is the expense to the taxpayers we represent.
And that's what I can, the direct benefit to the taxpayer.
I just don't see that. So clearly, what's the tax benefit to this when the initial program expects the city?
For
Like the annual income, once they get out of their, if we went with this, their commitment to the state, once it gets done, what would their annual tax payment credit to
city,
the city be?
I don't know what their property taxes would be, but we aren't taking the hit on the property taxes from them. We would be providing our contribution and they would be paid. This, if we didn't do it through URTE, if we just met the commitment that we needed to for the partnership, then they would be paying their full property tax amount. The state would be providing them tax benefits, but it wouldn't be coming out of our property taxes that we're receiving from them. We would pay the 50 or 130, depending on the development that we're going to be in partnership with. That would be our contribution, and then their property taxes would be paid to us without any tax exemption or reimbursement from us.
Part what that property tax would be.
Do you know what the project total is?
The project total is about 8.5 million. The appraised value after commission, 7.9 million.
There's two ways though for us to do that. We can go under the URTE or we could do it a partnership.
Right, so if we committed to this and then the council does decide to expand the URTE and it includes this parcel, and this development would get that, then we've met the contribution through that part. If they do not decide to expand the URTE and we want to support the project for this, so they can get their workforce housing credits, we would be responsible for contributing $1,000 per unit. And we can do that in tax exemption, TIF, cash, we can do that.
Same
Pretty much
term,
anyway.
same way as URTE.
We can't use TIF for residential.
It may, for our community specifically, we may not be able to, based on what you guys put in place, but in general, like something like a tip or a tax exemption or reimbursement would be one way, or just providing the cash for the amount that you need to contribute. There's a variety of ways that you can contribute that. What's required of the local public agency to partner with the state on this.
And then you come up with a number. Did you play with that?
You know, I did a little bit, but I wasn't sure, so.
But the other thing about tax revenue and the tax base, we're limited what we can spend. We left 300,000 on the
Right.
table last year
That's the state.
because of the state. So it brings in $200,000 a year in additional tax and property. It doesn't mean we get it in. Right.
If we utilize our TIF more than that, will basically offset the cut that we take with the new legislation. So for as long as that legislation exists, if we utilize our TIF, what we've got available through that, which is quite a bit, we don't use it to its full extent by any means. For the years that we're facing that legislation and that cut because of our growth, if we look harder at what we can use our TIF funds for, that will bring down where our growth percentage is looking at for your regular property tax revenue, which will result in a lower cut than what we saw this year because we did not utilize our TIF this year as much.
I'll throw out a approximate number, so nobody else has to take the hit on it. But based on what Sheridan Meadows is paying, if we use that value, the $8 million value, you'd be looking at approximately $100,000 a year. But I figured based on using them as a comparison,
Full tax bill, Jeff, or just?
no, that'd be a full tax.
So, do you mind?
So we get like a third of that.
I'm not in favor of kicking the can down the road, but in our meeting later, this would just allow them to file their things.
Yes,
And they're not committed to anything.
you would still have to go through a formal approval of that money if their application was in fact approved and awarded the tax credits.
Is there any more information that could be provided to us by the time we would have to make that decision? You know, in terms of what Jeff was talking about, the property taxes, things like that, it'd be more accurate than necessarily.
I mean, we could get a general projection, but that's still going to be an estimate, but the same estimates we use with other incentives or things that we look at. We did the same thing for the TIF, and we'll see what that comes out with when Realco's done making their improvements, but that's how we projected what we would get back from that.
I've only had one resident approach me about it. It's now 500 people, and they just weren't really in favor of it, but that's just one person. I'm curious, I would love to know what other people think.
This application would be for the Iowa Workforce Housing Tax Credit. So does that definitely kind of put it in a different area than residential, where the TIF would be, because it's not the same as the residential program?
So it's for workforce housing, so, I think that pretty much applies to multi-residential. I'm not exactly sure if single family is ruled out of that or not. But it is mostly for the purpose of multi-residential to be able to bring in middle income residents and family that are coming to work in the industrial parks and wanting to live in the community where they work. And the point is to bring them here where they can afford to live here. And then when they are established and do decide to purchase a home, which is trending towards mid-30s or 40s now, or just across the nation, then they would be able to afford to purchase their home in our community. So they are ready to do that. So that's the purpose of the program, providing affordable housing where they work.
Well, like Scott said, if it's non-committal, doesn't hurt to let them apply for it. They don't even get it anyway, but it's still, you don't have to commit to do that.
Yeah, I think our discussion here is clear. I don't want to send mixed messages. I think we're all very clear that we have some reservations about it. Most of us are clear that we have several reservations about it. It's definitely not a yes. Like, if we would approve this tonight, that is definitely not a yes. Mike.
But if one of you guys makes a motion and it gets seconded, make sure you put that in your motion, that this is for sure not committal. so everybody understands what you guys are approving.
I know, but makes a difference.
I'm not saying I won't vote, no, an hour.
Are we good on that one then, guys? All right. Number 4, discussion on proposals for a basement lower level remodel for the Eldridge Police Department. That. Oh, there we go. The chief.
Yeah, so I think we all could agree that our police department is not up to date as is what a 2024 police department should. What we're asking with this project is to utilize the space in the basement to make it more feasible for the police. What this proposal is, it would create a supply storage room, a secure supply storage room for our evidence supplies, our office supplies, our ammunition, and our gun safe. It would create another office area for a supervisor and for investigator. We do have 2 supervisors sharing an office right now. It would create a record room for all our secured records that is currently secured in what used to be an old drug lab. So that would be an upgrade. But the most important thing this proposal would provide is a woman's locker. Something that the department, ever since I joined in 2012, has never had. As I believe a 2024 police department should have, as long as that's. We do have a female officer at the academy right now. If we weren't able to do a women's locker room, what else we have to do is the basement bathroom will have to turn into a women's locker. And I worry about the message that was sent. You know, her wondering what the value of her is here in this organization if I have to stick her into a makeshift women's locker. So that's kind of what this proposal is to utilize the space that we have. Especially, I'm not asking for a new PD to be built tomorrow or anything like that. But use the space we have to do a small upgrade to make it more feasible for is what this proposal is. I'm not one to just necessarily spend money because we have it. This is more a want than, or I'm sorry, more of a need than a want. But my main goal is a woman's locker room, not just for our current employees, but our future employees that can diversify.
They're relatively close if you put on some of those options. From talking to them or going over that, do you have a preference?
I believe Exxon was the lowest bid. And talking to the contractors that came, they came multiple times, also the electrician. They said doing this will also add value to that building. So I don't know exactly what that value would be, but it will add some value to the building if the city decides in the future to sell it.
So are you recommending their proposal with the $3,155 add-ons, I think, which was like some acoustic panels and some carpeting tiles then, or?
Yes.
Concerned about that?
I'm not concerned about that. That's more, I think, of a want than a need.
Okay.
So I think otherwise the bid was 29 and change.
Mhm.
So that's what I would recommend as it's.
Okay,
What would they have on the floor if they didn't have the carpet top?
So the carpet tile, I think, was gonna be for the records room, which we don't need in the supply room. We don't need carpet in that. The women's locker room obviously would have the carpet tile. And I don't remember, I would have to double check on the office. I think we're just gonna leave the floor in the office the same. Just cut down the cost.
Which is what now?
Just concrete. Yeah. We also do have workout equipment that the city provided us from the rec center. And we're willing to, post that on Marketplace to see if we can sell that to drive down that cost if the city is willing.
Was there need for that equipment now that we're doing the YMCA?
Some guys, most guys are going, a lot of the guys are utilizing the YMCA. They're every once in a while, somebody will go down there and work out, including myself, but most of the guys are utilizing the YMCA.
I think it makes sense, just your argument about the female officer. I think that's a no-brainer. And
That's my biggest concern.
unfortunately, we're gonna have to change it.
Should have happened 20 years ago.
Female officer, 20%.
There's been some. Julie was there. When I was-
I guess the only point I would make is I would consider the carpet tile. It's a minimal expense, walking on concrete and working on a concrete floor.
We've had wood top on that kind before.
Yeah.
I'd rather carpet.
And if it's the 2x2 carpet squares, you get an extra box or two, and if that was bad, you pull it up and you put a new one down.
The chief didn't have this in front of him, but it appears that, the information in your packet is.
It's still $800 cheaper than the hybrid. Put that stuff on, and again, acoustic ceiling tiles, kind of nice to have some sound benders. I assume that those 2x4 lights, 2 of them is labor and materials.
Yeah, if you've ever been down there, what they'll do is they're gonna create a hallway where the records room is right now, split that in half with 2 doors. One will be record side, one will be side. So I do believe that they're planning on putting one of the 2 lights in that hallway.
Are there any plans?
Not that I have with me. I can get that from them.
Oh, problem, we just spent 30, we're looking at spending 30,000 of the 50 we just.
Way to go, Brad.
Hey, you know me, I'm the guy's glass half full.
The consensus here would be to move forward with the Dax with the $3,155.
Put that on the next council meeting. Or-
Okay,
Do you know what, just for additional expenses, what you're looking at for outfitting it with furniture and whatnot?
We should be good. We should have everything, especially for the office. We should be good for the computers. We shouldn't have anything like that. The only expense we'll have is a new locker for women's locker room. But what I can do is I can give up my locker that's in my office. Just to cut costs. It actually, that's basically brand new. So that's
You're talking, for a locker system, if you got this system set that you can add on to.
Yeah.
$1,000
that's what we have.
these.
Yeah.
Because at some point we're gonna need more.
We get to it on the agenda next meeting, include the operator.
I think we should.
And I can print out some photos for that.
yeah, dude,
Give you guys an idea of what that would be.
Yep.
I want to make sure the carpet, everything that. All the,
Because you get no water down there, right?
Very rare. In the records room, we do a little bit. That's why I didn't want to park it in there.
Makes sense.
But otherwise, it's usually pretty dry. So
Should I include an approval to sell the that they have down there?
Andrew, in that bid, one thing I was trying to look at, I know at one time there was talk of maybe, I guess I'll say ventilation issue with the evidence room. Would this correct that problem?
that,
It would not.
to be honest with you, the evidence room is not up to international standards. And that is foundation, walls, and foundation. Stuff.
Retrofit, that would be,
You're looking at, you would have to have 3 more concrete walls, 2 or 3 more concrete walls. Just for that. I know there was, when Tony was here, they did adjust it, get better ventilation in there. But if we have a big drug bust, you walk in and you can smell it on the city, you can smell the marijuana on the city wall side. So that tells us that it's not that big.
We put in like a bathroom fan and vent that outside.
That's kind of what they have now, and it does vent to the outside. It's not.
Not enough.
Can you maybe look into that, start some estimates on that too? Because I've often wondered if that would take one of those radar type fan systems that they put up, that drill into the foundation, that pulls the air from under the concrete and shoots it out. They almost look like one of those curling type of things, but they're kind of flat and oblong outside on the pipe. Those things have a pretty good life, those fan motors, but the PVC pipes like that big.
Jamie Severs Concrete has a lot of experience with safe rooms and stuff and ventilating through concrete walls. Okay.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Just have to create positive pressure flow out of them. Bigger fans or something.
Discussion on changing the speed limit on Lincoln Road 35 to 25 between South Buttermilk Road and Highway 61 bridge. Jeff, I'm calling you for that.
Yeah, did you want to start it off, Scott, or do you want me to go ahead?
I'll start, just talk a bit about that. We've talked about this several times over the past few months, the need to have some kind of a recreation trail along Lincoln Road to connect this big ridge with the bike path. And I think that we've had the general consensus that we kind of need to do something because it is a safety factor. And just again, last week I drive that stretch several times a week, and last week I saw 2 ladies, they're walking side by side. So you swerve around to do that. And I just think that there is no easy fix, as we've talked about. There's no quick and inexpensive fix to put a trail in right now along that. But I think that reducing the speed limit is something that we can do. I brought it to Nevada and Jeff's attention. I also talked to Chief, and they were supportive of at least looking at it. I'm the first one to admit that driving 25 on that stretch seems really slow. I drove it 35 and 25 within 5 minutes, and I think that it's slower. But at some point in time, I think the safety issue has to be addressed. And if we can't put in any kind of a trail, at least we can maybe slow the traffic down. And I'd like Andrew to kind of speak on some of the things you shared with me and what you thought about.
Yeah, I think that is a good idea. We're seeing a lot more pedestrian traffic on Lincoln Road, more people getting to the trails. Obviously, we have no sidewalks there, so we're seeing a lot of heavy traffic. As Councilmember Kim stated, all it takes is one incident. And I think this is the smartest decision to provide safety for those pedestrians. I personally have pulled over vehicles on Lincoln Road, and especially West Lincoln Road, where it's 35 going 60. So it's going to be an educational phase, especially with the police department. Obviously, we're not going to just hand out tickets. But if the council does agree to drop that down to 25, there's going to be definitely an educational phase to that before. Also, I think if you consider that aspect from the 61 bridge to First Street, you also probably should consider maybe taking that all the way up. And the reason I say that is we have two new housing divisions going up on West Lincoln Road. So we're going to see the same thing that we see on East Lincoln with pedestrian traffic trying to get to the front trail with those. So I think that might be the logical thing, is just to make that whole road from 61 bridge to Button Road in 25, especially with all the new houses coming.
I agree with Andrew on that. Dale submitted, preliminary plat to have another connection to Lincoln Road for this third edition. We've got a preliminary plat for Mount Foster taking this street all the way through. So within a couple of years, we'll have 2 more roads accessing that west section. And Scott and I were talking about this too. We think it'd also just create confusion. You know, just having a 35 to a 25 back to a 35, you know, so it makes sense just to go from Buttermilk all the way to the bridge at 25 if you're gonna do it. Guess that.
I personally think from South Fifth Street, extended intersection at Lincoln Road to the 61 overpass. It's west to South Fifth Street. You got two farms on the south side. Homes aren't there. You're gonna get people coming up 55 on Buttermilk Road, take a right. We should have it 35 from there to Fifth Street, 25 across, and just same way with east of 61 overpass. There's nothing there.
Yeah, east of the overpass, I don't see an issue with it still being 35 because you have two houses there on the north side, right? In that sense, yeah.
And same way with west of Fifth Street, you've got, Ronnie Meyer's old place, and then you got
Jim said also, but it's there.
on the corner, and, Patient is the other one on the south side. You got three houses, I think 35 pine through there.
Yeah.
As it grows though,
Then you can-
we can adjust it huge. But I would say from center line of South Fifth Street intersects with Lincoln Road to the bridge, 25.
I think that, yeah, I think that would work.
The reason I wanted to bring it up tonight for discussion is because I would also like to consider when this comes on the agenda, Jeff thought I could have an ordinance ready for June 17th meeting,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, I do have I talked to Ray about it. We looked at the Iowa Department of Transportation website. We couldn't find anything that prevents you from doing this or require a traffic study or something. We did throw it out to the city engineer. He said he wanted to look up a couple things, double check. So he hasn't got to be back to us with anything yet, but assuming that he gives us the all clear, then it'd be no problem. That's something.
My thought would be is I would like to have consideration of waiving the second, third meetings, so their June 17th meeting, and I wanted to get it out in the public tonight so people would have a chance to talk about it. But with summer here, more people on that road, I'd rather get it changed as soon as possible.
If it's a public safety thing, we can make it effective immediately.
That's my reason for bringing it for discussion, right, so we can get it out.
And I agree with Brian from Fifth Street.
I think
I think it would be better, but at the end of the day, it's still Band-Aid. And we've got to come up with something. And I don't think waiting for a grant, if we look for that for doing something along Lincoln's gonna be our first choice. That means we've got to pave the gas line east of Leclerc or east of First Street, even if it's only for a 5-year plan to get a permanent something there. We're gonna pay for it. We don't. Something's gonna happen. And it's not if, it's when. So I would be in favor of looking at getting pricing on extending that trail to the east so that that's tied in and those residents can safely get over there. Doesn't mean we can't go find another route along, like we talked about the back of the houses, but Lincoln Road's gonna have to have shoulders on it. So anything we look at doing to fix that problems, we're 3 to 5 years out at best, right? So we need to think of a short-term plan. And I mean, my personal goal is I'd like to see something in the next 12 months. Sooner would be better if we found a way to do
As
it.
far as what location,
The pipeline.
And Dale owns, we gotta talk to Dale. Dale owns that property there, and right now there is no recreation. The city owns no easement.
And would
to
you
property
be,
there.
would you be in favor of that, Dale? We've had discussion on it. And said something's gotta give.
well, the pipeline trail's been in works for over a decade.
Correct.
Just don't know when the pipeline is gonna go to the east. Don't think you're gonna let the pipeline go behind the houses. So does it go to the street?
Well, you're talking east of First Street or east of the farm field Dingley?
East of Dingles. Them houses. Hopefully we're not fit through there.
No, there would have to be an easement tied into a street or something. It's, those houses are already packed in. Originally it was designed to go on Lincoln Road on the north side of the road. That's why that setback is so far from the property. Now, the variance is just granted from a neighbor down there to put a pool in part of that that was originally dedicated for bike path. Problem with on the south side is we have Maria's family right there in the corner across from Ryan's property where the bike path or recreational trail would go 20 foot from their front door.
Could we put it behind their house?
Yes, that's possible.
I mean, I'd like to wrap it around with
Wrap around that house and go for the bike path and. Yeah,
But again, I see the point you're making. I mean, with Augusta Court there, that's where basically it runs into. There's nowhere to slide it in without taking people's backyards. And as much as they're in favor of safe path to get there, I don't think they're gonna be.
Yeah, we might be able to go north of Ria's, cut back in. And have little impact on Dale. But one thing, when we do this, and I know this isn't subject matter tonight, I'd like to put crosswalks. Signalization like we have at the high school. There's a crosswalk at Sheridan Meadows, or Sheridan Drive. There's one at Pinehurst. There'll be one, south of Torrey Pines, when that goes across. Should probably have a crosswalk.
Use for.
Yeah, how it goes through there, but Park Street. There is, I mean, you gotta sit and dodge the traffic.
I see that quite a bit. It's true.
Yeah, wherever, if we want people to utilize, this, we have to make it safe for them to get to. And I would say long-term, I don't know if Lincoln Road's the best place. Lincoln Road, put a crystal ball on 20, 30 years from now, it'd be a totally different center of the town. But at some future committee of the whole meetings, I'd like to talk about pedestrian signals like at the base at some of those walking past streets to get to the recreational trail.
Yeah.
Safety. Then you got moms pushing strollers, little kids and bikes. Plus it'll slow down traffic even more on the street, both north and south.
I know one time, Dale, when you're looking to buy that property, me and you had talked, and you talked about maybe even a water feature over there, but when we were talking about the bike path that's been in plans for quite some time going directly over the pipeline, concern about that property you purchased, if a bike path went there, was the waterway drainage and the retention ponds and stuff are back there, that the bike path would have to probably be elevated somewhat over what height of the ground is, and then how that would interfere with the water drainage back there and the water retention ponds back there. And that's kind of where we drop that discussion.
I'll have to have engineering take a look at how the drainage is gonna go, whether it's gonna go alongside first, down first, or if we're gonna tile it through the field. Under the bike path.
Right, but what we had talked about was if they went with the original plan, which is to put an 8 or 10 foot wide path directly on top of the gas pipeline over to Fox Ridge through your property. But it goes across waterways, next to some retention ponds. So all that engineering would need to be looked at, so it wouldn't impede all the water engineering that's been done to like Muse Circle with their big fancy French drain there where the water comes under the road. All that stuff would need to be looked at to make sure it would not affect all the other work that's been already done.
Well, Muse goes out to the west.
Right, but all the water comes under that road. It goes that, so I'm saying, anything done over there that would change the topographic, how that looks right now, would affect how that drains.
Or the water retention will be done out. And all be tiled to there. That's the way engineering is looking at it now.
On the ground you bought from Dingler.
Yes.
Gonna put that on next agenda, then the speed of the thing.
As long as we have our answers back from the engineer, we will.
Yeah.
Okay,
You should have this
Yeah.
All right, discussion for employee appreciation.
And this on there. Oh, we can talk about it a little bit.
I brought this up, just as I did, we got that new clipper. And we can't use taxpayer money, that's what I'd be willing to pay for a portion of it myself. If some Saturday, sure, the Meadows, get a group of us to fund it. And, I mean, hell, I thought, but have an employee appreciation day for them and their families after everything we've been through in the last 2 years. To say, basically, thank you.
On top of that, I've been talking to Nevada too about, I think, a couple different things we need to look at, not necessarily a full-blown SWOT analysis, but creating some core values. But I'd like to see us start an employee recognition program. Whether that's quarterly, how they get, picked for it, but I think we need to turn the page and start working on some positive things. I think an employee recognition program would be one great way to start. I've been researching, I found a few different, I primarily searched for municipalities to kind of copy how they were doing it. I found one that really stood out, which I'll bring some information on that for the next meeting, but I think it would be a big hit. I'd like to see more involvement with workers on a daily basis. Let's start taking some pictures of jobs the city employees are doing. Let's post them on social media. Let's brag about the people that we have and what they're doing. I think it goes a long way.
We were thinking along the same line. I just want to, we've been through a lot. And I personally appreciate everything that our workers have done to keep things together. Now, we can do it as simple as our workers. I think if we do it on a Saturday, families automatically are invited. We can go out as far as including the boards for the planning, P&Z, utility board. We should just have but we cannot fund it with taxpayers. Go out and solicit funds from anybody. Probably have enough assets around the table, everybody chip in a little. Make it. So maybe you could check, see what dates are available at Sheridan Meadows. Pavilion.
No, I thought, I understand the Saturday thing, but they are already here 5 days a week. Would it be better just they could have their weekends and we do it some evening or something? Just to consider that.
Because there's so many sports, you're right.
Let's see if the availability is. I just want to be able to provide them adequate time if they want to bring their spouses and their children to do it.
Yep, to us for it.
Well, the other thing I thought about too, when we have that cooker, if we do these quarterly awards recognitions, council goes every once a quarter, and that day that we present them, just does lunch for everybody. Can rotate through City Hall and grab lunch and thank yous.
Well, we use the cooker. Who's going to arm wrestle Bruce so we can use it?
I used it a couple of weeks ago. We did the same thing with this department. We had a cookout at Sheridan Meadows this weekend. Everyone brought a side, I brought the meat, and I tell you, they love it. So I think that's a great idea. I think that'll go far. But yes, you're gonna have to find those.
So you used the cooker last. Part of that, you used it for the golf outing.
Bruce used it last. For the golf.
Okay, Bruce used it last.
I used it before.
And yet, in our bills payable, the LP tank is being charged to street department. How's that?
They eat good, we'll say that.
You guys notice that the LP tank?
Yeah, I asked about that today.
Yep.
All right, with that being said, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Second by Campbell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. 6:57.